You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Hey, I'm Clayton. I'm a very big Queens podcast fan. Katie and Nathan wanted me to let y'all know if you do not like cursing in this show, then the show might not be for you. But if you love saucy podcast about badass women in history, then you're going to love this. So grab your drinks and grab your snacks, whatever floats your boat, and let's take a wild ride through history. Cheers, bitches!
Hi, this is Katie.
And this is Nathan.
And you're listening to Queen's Podcast, the show about badass women in history. Hey, Nathan.
Hey, Katie. How are you this lovely Sunday?
I am doing just fine. Well, you're still rocking your furry Russian hat.
Oh, I'm rocking it for the next episodes that we have.
However many.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. This life of Cahterine the Great. They don't call her the Great for nothing. This is a fascinating story. So we got a lot to talk about. So you want to just get into it?
We really do. We could probably talk about this for like 24 hours straight.
Absolutely.
So where did we leave off? Cahterine has gone from poor little German princess to the Grand Duchess of Russia after her marriage to her cousin, Peter. And we left her on her wedding night where Peter got really drunk and fell asleep and didn't touch her vagina. And he
didn't touch her anything.
Yeah, didn't touch her anything and would continue not to touch any of her genitalia for many, many years.
Peter did not have any interest in sleeping with his wife whatsoever. In her memoir, she wrote, "My husband did not pay me attention, but spent all his time playing with toy soldiers in his rooms with his servants."
Oh my God.
Yeah, he's like supposed to be, he's 17.
He's playing with toy soldiers. Like, I'm just imagining a kid in high school playing with his G.I. Joes. And like...
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was. Peter was so obsessed with playing with his toy soldiers that his aunt, the Empress Elizabeth, had taken them away. Mm-hmm. So Peter had bribed one of Catherine's ladies in waiting to, like, after Cahterine and Peter were put to bed, she would come in from like a side door and give him his toy soldiers so he could play with them in bed.
It's like crack. It's like crack for a kid.
And Cahterine would just lay there in bed trying to sleep while Peter's like playing G.I. Joe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, he's 17. That is so bananas. 17 is like the horniest age for most people.
So, needless to say, this is a really lonely time for Cahterine. Like, not only is her husband like playing with toy soldiers, but he's not showing her any attention. Her stage mom, Joanna, was sent home. So, I mean, you would think that would be a relief to Cahterine, but she was actually kind of depressed about it, which was really weird because I was like, are you really that sad when stage mom goes home? I guess so.
Right. No. They didn't really have a warm relationship, but still, like, her mom... Yeah, well, like, her mom had been a constant, like, the only constant in her entire life. It's still her mother, so she's going to miss her when she gets sent away, but especially since she has nobody... She doesn't even have anybody to talk to now, you know? It just sucks.
For sure.
At the same time that her mom was sent away, too, all of Catherine's young ladies in waiting were replaced with older ladies that had, like, strict instructions from Elizabeth not to befriend Cahterine. Because Elizabeth's thinking is that if I take away all of her friends... the only person she'll have to talk to is going to be Peter. They're going to get really close and bam, babies. And she sent away some of Peter's staff too, you know, just thinking, I'm just going to force these kids together. And it did not work.
Nope. Big fail. Nope. So Cahterine went along with all of this, despite how lonely she was. She really just wanted to make Elizabeth happy, I think. And, you know, that was very different than Peter. Like, Peter openly mocked Elizabeth and would, like, do things just to piss her off. He's such a dick. So, Cahterine was more like, hey, I'm just going to keep my head down, do what I can to make situations better. I'm not going to get in trouble or anything. And she did something that a lot of nerdy girls who don't really fit in high school. She did the little common thing that I think we talk about with a lot of our gals. They dived into books.
She got real into books.
Yeah, books on books on books.
Any genre, any language, any subject. Like, books were just like her escape from her loneliness.
I'm just imagining seeing her read a romance novel with Fabio on it and just being like,
Yeah.
I wish he was my husband.
Yes. I'm sure she would have loved that. About a year into her marriage, Elizabeth decided that it was not acceptable that Cahterine wasn't pregnant yet. And instead of like sitting the couple down and talking to them about like what's going on in your relationship, no. Instead, she started to take her frustration out on Cahterine publicly. Like, they would just be like out for a walk with like other people in court, and she'd be like, Cahterine, where's the baby? Why aren't you pregnant yet? What the fuck is going on?
Gross.
And it was all like, your fault, your fault, your fault. Like, she didn't want to put any of the blame on Peter. And these people need therapy.
I know. I feel like that's common, though, that whenever, I mean, even today, that whenever a woman doesn't get pregnant, it's always blamed on the woman. It's usually it's the woman's fault. But it's so sad because I kind of liked Elizabeth at the beginning of this story, and now she's kind of like, but I think we'll get to it later. I think a little bit of it's justified. So anyway, she just assumed, Cahterine must be shooting Peter down all the time.
Yeah.
Cahterine must be shooting Peter down all the time. Because
it's a dick joke.
Yeah. So he's 18. He's 18. Like, he's the one that would be making dick jokes right now.
Yeah. Well, he's like 18 and he's spending every night in the bed with his hot young wife.
I know. Like, how can you not put a move on her?
Yeah, so Elizabeth just assumes it's Cahterine shooting him down, because why would he not be trying to hook up with his wife?
She doesn't know. I feel like Elizabeth just doesn't know, so she's just putting the blame on Cahterine. She doesn't know the dynamics of the relationship, so she's just blaming Cahterine.
Which just sucks for Cahterine. It's fucked up for Cahterine.
Right?
But the reason that Elizabeth is trying to pressure them to have babies so hard, she's not really telling anybody, but Elizabeth's health is really starting to fail. And not a lot of people know. But also, Elizabeth has never really, like, taken care of herself. She loves to throw parties. She overindulges in lots of vices. She drinks too much. She eats too much. She doesn't sleep enough. And I'm not exactly sure what she has, but she's sick, and all these like pre-existing habits aren't helping anything. And so she knows Peter. She's like, oh, he's gonna suck as an emperor. I need to make sure they have some heirs before I die. So that's why she's putting all this pressure on Cahterine, but she needs to find a different way to do it. What she's doing now is not helpful.
Because, like, Cahterine doesn't know that. She only knows, like, my husband hates me. This woman that was so nice to me when I first got here, all of a sudden, hates me too. So why is everybody so hostile to me here? And Catherine's also very aware that she'd been so popular at court just like a year ago. But now, all of a sudden, everybody's talking about her marriage. Everybody's mocking her. So, like, the gossip at Russian court was extra, y'all. Like, it was extra.
It was harsh. And one time, Elizabeth was just really tearing Cahterine a new one for her lack of babies. And Cahterine runs back to her room just crying. And she says that she, like, took a blade, like a knife that she had in her room, and was, like, laying in her bed, holding it up to her chest like she was going to stab herself. And she was like, that's how dark it got. And then, like, one of her ladies in waiting walks in and sees her doing this and, like, freaks out and is like, no, it's not worth it. But, and she just talks about this big dramatic scene. But then in her memoirs, she writes that actually the knife wasn't really even sharp enough to penetrate her corset.
Oh my God. What a queen.
Sometimes it just feels good to be dramatic. Sometimes it's just, I need to cry and act like I'm going to stab myself.
So it's possible that Peter had what we refer to here at Queen's Podcast as ding dong problems. Technical term.
Technical term. Mm-hmm.
So in Marie Antoinette's episode, we talked a little bit about how her husband Louis might have had ding dong problems. Also might have been gay, maybe.
Yeah.
But he had ding dong problems for sure. And it's thought that maybe Peter had the same sort of problem, which is fixed with, nowadays with just a little short surgery. Some people just grow out of it. The actual term is phimosis, but ding dong problems just hit.
I prefer ding dong problems. Yeah.
It makes it so much more emotional, and you connect to the disease more by calling it ding dong problems.
It's more fun to say. But no, that paired with like his mental regression, like how we talked about last episode, he got smallpox and like really regressed. He was just so ill-suited to father children or to be in a healthy relationship, and the two of them
or to rule Russia.
Or to rule Russia. And they just weren't in a place where they were going to be making any babies. They were also just like a bad match. And in the book I'm reading, which I linked to in last time's show notes, I'll link to it in this one too. It said, since no one could figure out why Peter hated his new wife so much, they just assumed she was doing something horrible to him behind closed doors. And she wasn't. She was being completely accommodating. He just wanted
We see that with so many of our queens too, where it's like it's got to be the woman's fault. It's all the woman's fault. It can't.
Right.
The man can do no wrong. He's got a dick. I mean, that makes him extra special.
Yeah.
Hello. What? So this goes on for a while, and so we're gonna fast forward. Let's make the noise. So we fast forward to 1751, and Cahterine is now 22, and Peter gets a few new gentlemen of the chamber, and a few of them are looking fine, looking
pretty
good
cute.
in their, looking good in their knickers.
Ooh. Okay. More specifically, there was this one guy named Sergei Saltykov, and he was looking real good to Cahterine.
Saltykov wasn't salty, was he? He was. I think he made our girl Cahterine thirsty.
Oh, she was so thirsty. Well, let's talk about him a little bit. Basically, in a nutshell, and we're probably going to talk about him a little bit more in a Patreon episode, but he's a fuckboy.
Yeah.
He's tall, he's handsome, he's charming, he's married.
I like how you threw that in there very casually.
He's, he's tall, handsome, blah, blah, married, super married. And he's just always been a player. He was a player before he got married, and he didn't quit being a player after he got married. He's just a womanizer. And
free Britney.
Yes, hashtag free Britney. And he takes one look at Cahterine, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna sleep with that chick."
I mean, somebody has to. Yeah,
oh my God, somebody fucking has to at this point.
Yeah, please insert penis here.
Here.
Yes. That's what her dresses said. She had graffiti on them, yes.
Yes.
So everyone's like, oh, no, honey. No, Salty Saltykov, no. That's the Grand Duchess. She's married to your boss, the Grand Duke Peter, future emperor. No big deal. But get this. They don't sleep together. She's still a virgin. Because hubby Peter's Peter problems have prevented this. So,
say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, right. Talk about tongue twister. So speaking of tongues that need to go somewhere, men are gross, and because they're gross, he found out that she was a virgin. It's like, okay, 100%, I'm popping that cherry. Fuck it, she's 22. Someone's got to be doing this. I feel like he's like that dude in like college that's like the preppy football player that bangs everybody and
Yeah.
is like everybody's first guy to sleep with.
That fits. Him. Yeah. He's the guy you go to and you're just like, I just need to lose my virginity. Like, fine. But he pursues her hard for like 4 months. Like, he is love bombing the hell out of her.
How hard did he love her?
Oh.
Did he love her extra hard? Unlike
hard.
her Peter problem husband, boy, child?
Yes. Unlike her Peter problem husband, boy, child.
Yes.
But he's like writing her letters and like no one's been paying attention to her except to chastise her for the last like 4 years or whatever. This guy, like, he comes in and he'll like take note that, oh, Peter's ignoring Cahterine again, and like swoop in and like talk to her and make her feel, it just makes her feel good, you know? Mm-hmm. I can only imagine how gratifying that must have been after so much loneliness. And he would like tell her stories about like, we're gonna run away together and you'll never be lonely again, which I imagine to her just sounded fucking great. So,
right?
Yeah, so about 6 months after he comes to court, they were lovers.
Ooh, finally our girl is getting some affection. She's getting some affection.
She's getting some affection and some dick.
So it's not really a secret at the time. Everybody kind of knew it. And Peter thought it was hilarious that someone else was sleeping with his wife. Like, what the fuck is wrong with this dude?
What is wrong with him?
I don't.
He was like, yeah. I don't get it. In his mind, though, he's just like, we're pulling one over on Elizabeth. Like, she, like, by you having an affair, we're like playing a trick on her. Like, oh God, he's such a child.
This boy ain't right. He ain't right.
That boy ain't right. You are correct. This one woman, Marie Choklikova, nailed it, who was Catherine's head of household, came to her and was like, look, I'm going to need you to be straight with me. Are you sleeping with Saltykov? And like, this woman was actually working for Elizabeth, so Cahterine just froze, horrified. Mm-hmm. She didn't want to say anything. But Choklikova was like,
chocolate all over ya.
Chocolate all, oh yes, Marie, chocolate all over ya. She was like, but she was like, no, I'm not here to stop you. You need to be having a freaking baby. So I really don't care if you're sleeping with him. I just need to know so I can manage the situation.
I bet Catherine's like, oh,
right? She's like, okay, then yeah, we're totally,
yeah, we're fine.
We're totally fucking.
I'm getting that D. So Cahterine got pregnant.
Yay!
But then she had a miscarriage.
No.
And she got pregnant again.
Yay!
And then she miscarried again.
Oh.
And this time it was especially bad because it nearly fucking killed her.
Yeah, she was like on bed rest for like 3 weeks or something after that second miscarriage. Like, it was, oh God, any time before modern medicine sounds like a horrifying time to, I mean, I'm sure giving birth right now is still very scary, but back then. Whew.
Yeah, I have not Googled that. Maybe I'll go down that rabbit hole one day of like birthing back in history, like how awful it probably was.
Doesn't sound great.
Yeah. So during this time, she started to feel salty Saltykov. He's starting to pull away a little bit.
Because he's a fuckboy.
Yeah, exactly. So Cahterine is desperate to keep him, and she's like, okay, what can I do to make you happy? You know, it's like the girl who, she lost her virginity to him. So she's like, I'll do anything to keep you here. And he's like, I'm just a fuckboy.
Yeah, she's dickmatized.
Yeah, totally. So he gets her to write him all these letters of recommendations to all these different diplomats saying how, oh, it'd be such a favor and an honor to her if you'd give him this or that job. So he's basically just using her for connections at this point.
Right.
Total fuckboy.
He's such a fuckboy. But Cahterine gets pregnant for a third time. And third time's a charm. But once she hits her second trimester, she kind of falls into a depression, and she would just like cry all day. And she says, like, in like her mind was just full of, you know, like whenever you play out scenarios in your head of like how things can go, she just kept like playing over and over these like doomsday scenarios.
So anxiety. She suffered from a lot of anxiety, is what it sounds like.
She was having some really bad anxiety during her pregnancy. And, you know, she goes into her confinement and she just doesn't have a friend in the world. Elizabeth set her up these gorgeous rooms for her confinement, but they're like attached to Elizabeth's rooms. So Salty Cough can't come visit her. And she's convinced he doesn't love her anymore because he never did. He's a fuckboy.
No.
And she is just a bird in a cage. It's the most beautiful and gaudy, over the top decorated cage, but it is a cage, and she is feeling some deep depression.
Yeah, so then on a Thursday morning at 2 a.m., her labor pains started. Which, what we read is that she was put on a traditional birthing mattress, which just sounds like a hard mattress that they put on the floor.
Yeah.
Again, I want to go down this rabbit hole so bad.
It's just like a hard mattress, very basic, on the floor. Why on the floor? That was traditionally where, I don't know why. It's just weird. It's just weird.
Yeah, so she went into labor at 2 a.m. on a Thursday, and her baby was born Friday at noon. That's a long labor.
That is a really long labor.
Yeah, I would think that I was dying.
Yeah. But Peter, for his part, was really drunk.
He's such a good friend, man, child, husband.
Yes. And I mean, he's going to be claiming this child as his own. Cahterine wrote in her memoirs that they never slept together. Though, we can talk about this later, too, if we want to. But this baby that's born goes on to become Paul of Russia. And everyone talked about how similar he was to Peter. So is Cahterine lying in her memoirs, and she did sleep with Peter at least once and just didn't want to admit to it? Or is it just an accident that the child ends up looking and acting like Peter? We don't know.
That's weird.
Cahterine is full on in labor for like 2 days, and yeah, Peter is drunk in his room playing with his toy soldiers. Like, that was, Elizabeth was like, I don't need him out here doing anything to embarrass me. Just keep him occupied. And they're like, so we can give him the toy soldiers? And she's like, fuck it. Give him the toy soldiers.
It's so stupid.
It's like my dogs when I need them to be occupied because I'm recording or something. Like, I give them like a bone that I wouldn't usually give them. It's just like, yeah, just be quiet.
Yeah, by the way, don't say that word too loud, because then the dogs will be like, oh my god, where?
What?
So, anyway, then on September 20th, 1754, Cahterine delivers the baby boy on a mattress on the floor.
I can't move on from that for some reason. Why is it a mattress on the floor? Anyway.
So Elizabeth immediately swoops him away, has him baptized, names him Paul, and is like, bye, Cahterine.
Yeah. Cahterine doesn't even, I don't think she even gets a chance to hold the baby. They, Elizabeth more or less kidnaps this child. Cahterine does not get to raise him. Elizabeth's just
well, I mean, to be fair, in Elizabeth's defense, Russians are weird. There's a lot of this shit going on where the children of emperors and empresses are swooped away and whisked away and raised in captivity, and Russians are weird.
Yeah. But so Cahterine has finally done what people have been wanting her to do for the last 10 years, and they whisk the baby away, and Cahterine is just left on her mattress on the floor for hours.
Ew, imagine the afterbirth.
She's covered in sweat and blood, and she's dehydrated, and she's too weak to even like get herself up to try to clean herself up. She's got this one woman who's like attending her, and she's like, hey, I'm too weak to get up. Like, can you help me get off this dirty mattress that's like covered in my blood? And the lady was like, I'm not high enough rank for that. I'll have to wait for someone of a higher rank to come back and tell me that's okay.
That is, oh my God. I'd be like, I just want some goddamn service in this place.
Right? And Catherine's like, okay, can I have a glass of water then? And the lady's like, no, I'm not this is all above my pay grade. I can't do anything for you except for just
We
sit
need to
here.
get our girl Cahterine. We need to get our girl Cahterine a Karen haircut and tell her just to go speak to your manager.
She needed to speak to the manager, right? But no, it was like 2 or 3 hours until somebody of high enough rank came back and was like, get the Duchess off the floor for fuck's sake. What? She had to wait 3 hours in her own afterbirth to get a glass of fucking water and to get like a change of clothes. How would this make you feel?
Like a cow.
Yeah.
I would feel like a birthing cow that's just made to give birth and wallow in terror all the rest of your life and just have babies. That's it.
It would make you feel like you would expect that if you've done the thing that has been expected of you for so long, give birth to an heir and a son on the first go, even though Russia, seems a little bit more lenient with women being able to rule, but still, like, you've done it. You'd think you'd at least get like a pat on the back or like a congratulations and like, let's take care of you now. But she's just left like a piece of bye. And
she's literally like cattle. Like they're treating her like property. Like that's her job, is to have babies.
And she is left alone to recover for months.
Oh my God. And she was already suffering from depression before. I bet it's 10 times worse now.
It is. She felt, like you said, she felt like a piece of cattle just meant for breeding, and no one cared if she lived or died. She had no friends. Elizabeth had reassigned Saltykov to a post in Poland.
Bye, fuckboy.
And he didn't even write to tell her goodbye.
I mean, she should have expected it.
Yeah. But whenever it's your first boyfriend, you don't know. How are you supposed to know?
Yeah, right.
She pretended that she had numbness in her legs and couldn't get up, just so people would just let her lay in bed all day.
Oh my gosh, poor darling though. I bet she was. I mean, I really can't blame her for being depressed. She was already having those issues in her 3rd trimester. She has the baby. Postpartum is real. She's probably also suffering from a little bit of that.
Yeah.
And besides that, they took your baby away.
She doesn't see the baby again until 40 days later.
Yeah, and everybody's celebrating the birth of this child, and she can hear the fireworks and the cheers and all this, but she can't see her own,
and she's alone.
Baby.
No one is coming to see her. Elizabeth isn't coming to see her. Her ladies in waiting aren't her friends. She did, and she's just I did everything I was supposed to do. Why is everybody treating me like this? I put up with Peter. I tried to be a good wife, and then he went and touched me. Y'all told me I needed to have a baby, so I had a bear and had a baby, and now she's just unforgotten and unloved, and my heart just goes out. That must be such a shitty feeling.
I love how you threw in the affair part. You're like, and then they told me to have a baby, and I had an affair. I had a baby. I was like, but Peter was fine with it. Peter was fine with it, so who cares? So Cahterine stayed in her confinement from the birth in September 1754 until the end of winter in 1755.
Yeah.
5.
That is...
That's way longer than a lot of our confinements that we've ever talked about.
Yeah. So, but during this time, she turned to her best friend, and her best friend is books. This is when she discovers and really falls in love with the ideas of Voltaire and the ideas of the Enlightenment, and she is jiving with that hard. She started studying Russian history anymore, but specifically political and military history of Russia.
Impressive.
Yes, and she got really into Roman history with the warfare and the politics, because when we talked about the Agrippinas, how cutthroat they were with their politics. I think she saw some parallels there with the Russian politics. And she was like, this might be a good thing to know.
Honestly, if this was a rom-com, this would be that montage part of the movie.
Mhm.
So she's reading and looking at maps. She's getting a makeover with Jonathan Van Ness. She is reinventing herself. I want the world to know. All things just keep getting better.
Yes.
And she is looking fabulous, honey.
Yes.
And she is living this, this quiet girl behind, and she is going to make herself into a smart, strong, independent. Do you know what that means, man?
Yes.
Woman. But woman.
She's like, fuck Peter, fuck Elizabeth. They don't care about me. I thought Elizabeth cared about me. Clearly she does not. Fuck all this nasty court gossip. I am reinventing myself, and that's this is the time from the ashes rises the phoenix, because this is the time when she becomes like the woman that we think about as Catherine the Great. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh, for sure, because at this point she makes her formal re-entrance into society on Peter's birthday, which I found very interesting, in September of 1455, which that's a year after her baby's born.
She gets this new dress. It's like the stunning blue taffeta gown, and she walks into the party, and like, again, when this is like a movie rom-com, this is like the end of the montage, and she walks into the party, and like they do the slow-mo walking, and everybody turns and looks at her, and it's like, is that the same girl? She is looking fine. She's carrying herself with confidence. She is now 100% that bitch.
She took the DNA test. It is proven.
She doesn't want people to refer to her as the Grand Duchess anymore. They want her to refer to her as the mother of the heir. Because she's making everybody remember. No, I did that. I did that.
So now at every single party, every day at court, she's making sure she's part of every political conversation. Mm-hmm. So she's challenging the ideas that all the old stuffy men liked and were discussing at the parties. She's getting involved in how people are running the country, and people are starting to notice that.
Yeah.
And oh shit, this girl's actually got a head on her shoulders, and she's smart.
Right?
She could make a good empress one day.
Yes.
And then whispers start to go around, and they start to spread, and they're like, when Peter's emperor, it's actually gonna be Catherine that's running the show. She's the one that, quote unquote, wears the pants in the relationship. Right. And Catherine's like, damn straight I do. Mm-hmm.
Due to this, her and Peter's relationship completely shifts. She used to like humor his stupid childness, and now she looked at him just like, oh my God, you were so embarrassing. You disgust me. I can't believe I'm married to this like loser over here. And on more than one occasion, Peter tries to debate with her in public, and she just obliterates him. She's smarter than him, and she's always been smarter than him, but now that she's got this confidence, she's just like this next level, and she does not have time to watch him play with toys anymore, you know?
I don't blame her. So there's one story where Peter was like, I'm gonna put you in your place, woman. And she's like, and how do you expect to do that? Mm-hmm. And then he points to his sword on his belt, and then she laughs in his face. I love it. She laughs in his face and is like, grab me a sword, dude. Let's fucking duel right here. Let's go.
Yeah. I love it too.
and he's so surprised by this. I can just imagine mic drop, and then his jaw drops. Right. And he's like, oh my God. And everybody else that's in the room is like, did she just? Oh, yes, she did.
Yes. And she's like, go to bed. You're too drunk for this conversation anyway.
Yeah.
And he did. And then he went to bed. He was like, fine, we'll talk about it later, because he was too drunk.
Such a little bitch boy.
Like, Peter does not like this new Catherine, and does not like what people are saying about her being like the more competent ruler.
Yeah, this is one of the symptoms of fragile dick energy, for sure. One of the main symptoms, diagnosis, when you go to the doctor and you say, I just don't like what people are saying about me. The doctor's going to say, you've got a case of fragile
You
dick
may
energy.
ask your doctor if you are suffering from fragile dick energy.
So he tells Cahterine when he's emperor, he's going to divorce her immediately and send her straight to a convent. And Catherine's like, okay, let's see how that plays out for you, dude.
Right. At this point, Peter has started taking to dressing in Prussian army outfits. It's like a cosplay of his. And like,
I don't think that's isn't that like weren't they like at war with Prussia?
Yes, they were at war with Prussia. So it was not a popular move, but he did it anyway. But like, if you remember, he's the Grand Duke and the heir to Russia, but he's also Prussian Duke. I think he's the Duke of Holstein, maybe. He identifies way more with being that, but he is in Russia. He is the heir to the throne. They are at war with Prussia, and he wears Prussian military garb head to toe.
Not a good idea. Not a good
look. And it just reminds me, like, anytime anybody mentions Frederick the Great, who's the king of Prussia at this time, like, Peter just lights up, and it makes me think, in the movie Elf, when somebody says Santa's coming, and Buddy the elf is like, Santa, I know him! That's what it makes me think of. He's just like, Frederick the Great, I know him! And everyone...
Oh, I bet you I would put money on it that Peter probably had a toy soldier that was painted up Prussian, and he called him Frederick.
Probably. And just everyone is like, what is wrong with this guy?
Right? Like, wrong timing, not a good idea. And then you have this to, like, in comparison, you have Cahterine over here, who's trying to learn about Russian history, who's trying to learn about how to rule a country and about strategies and Roman warfare. She's trying to be the heir to Russia. Like, she's actually doing the work to actually be a leader.
She's talking to people like, I read this book about this one, like, Roman war strategy they used. I think that would be useful. And people are like, damn, look who read up upon, like, warfare. Who is this chick? It was a smart move on her part. Unlike Peter, who was doing all he could to be hated.
So, again, we're going to fast forward again, so let's do the little noise. So, we're going to get to the good stuff. So, here's a big old summary of what's happened. Peter and Cahterine basically are living separate lives after this. They both have their own courts. They both take on their own lovers. And Catherine's court is really getting more and more respect as opposed to Peter's court where he's playing with toy soldiers. And she's making good political connections, and Peter's at a drunken frat boy house.
So he has started fucking, because he has a very serious mistress now. So I guess his ding dong problems have fixed them.
He outgrew his ding dong problems. Good.
Yeah. So good for him.
He's got 99 problems and ding dongs
no
aren't
longer. I can't believe he found somebody willing to fuck him though, but whatever. Cahterine, let's see. Oh yeah. So yeah, and at his Brofest court, Peter is just telling everybody that, like, once I'm emperor, I'm gonna put Cahterine aside and marry my mistress, and he's treating his mistress like she's already empress and, like, giving her, like, all these honors and stuff that should go to Cahterine. I mean, I don't think Cahterine lost any sleep over it, though.
No, I think she was just fine. Because actually, she has another baby. And it's most likely fathered by this guy named Poniatowski. He's a diplomat that she had an affair with, who she would later appoint to be king of Poland. Imagine how that works. Funny how that works.
And we'll probably talk more about him over on Patreon as well. They had a daughter. They named her... Well, they didn't name her. Elizabeth named her Anna. She did the same thing. She did the same thing she did with Paul. Like, right after the baby was born, swooped in, took her away, and Cahterine didn't really get to see her anymore. But at least this time, Cahterine knew what to expect, so she didn't go through like that depression like she did previously.
Yeah. Sad side note, baby Anna just died a few months later, and Cahterine was wrecked, as anybody would be. But she's already had a rough go at it, let's be real. So after the funeral, Cahterine left her daughter's memory and never mentioned her daughter ever again.
I think she's like briefly mentioned in her memoirs, but just to basically shit talk Peter, because like Peter was a bunch of drama during that delivery, but yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Was he? He was?
Yeah, he showed.
Hard to imagine.
He showed up drunk to her delivery, and even though there was no way that no one even entertained the idea that this was his child.
They didn't even see each other.
Yeah, he wanted to pretend like this would be his child, and like showed up drunk to the delivery with his sword, and he's just he's such a this fucking guy. Anyway, in 1760 or 1761, she meets this Russian war hero named Gregory Orlov. Well, I don't think Gregory Orlov was the love of her life in the grand scheme of things. Up to this point, he definitely was. But Orlov is, like I said, he's like this war hero. He comes from a big military family. He's smart. He's strong. He's brave.
I want to bone him.
He's from a lower class than Cahterine was, but the way that, court and society worked there is like, it was sometimes acceptable for people of higher classes to mingle with people of lower classes if they've done something like been really good at war or whatever.
Good at warring.
He was a bit of a celebrity in Russia because of his military time.
Yeah, it was noted that he was smart, but Cahterine was probably a little bit smarter than he was. But he wasn't intimidated by that, so he didn't seem to mind. He wasn't
which is what she needs.
Yeah, he's like this intelligent, smart woman. I kind of like it. Cool. She's got a personality. She's got a big personality. She's smart. She's got a good head on her shoulders. She's sexy. Yes, this was a turn on for her too, because she's like, finally somebody appreciates me, because she's just really had fuckboys before all this, and now she has a guy that really appreciates her for who she is and her personality. So they fucked a lot. So really passionate relationship. It was, so unsurprisingly, when you fuck a lot, you find yourself pregnant again.
Her being with Orlov actually made the military see her as an ally. They looked at it like she doesn't think she's too good to mingle with the commoners. And so everyone's like, she's sleeping with one of us, so that means that she doesn't think she's better than us or whatever. Whereas Peter was a very polarizing figure to the military, unsurprisingly.
Yeah, because he dresses in the enemy's clothing.
Yes. Yes.
Funny how that works.
Makes them feel like he's making a mockery of like them going out and putting their life on the line,
Right? So another fun side note, she hid this pregnancy from the entire court, stating that she had to like lock herself away because she was so embarrassed by how her husband was parading around this mistress. Bitch, you pregnant.
Yeah.
Don't lie.
She hid it. Nobody at court knew. And on the night that the baby was being born, like when the labor pains got really bad, her like head of household went and set a house on fire because Peter loved to watch fires. And back then, like all the houses were made of, they hadn't started building them out of stone or whatever. And so it was pretty common for houses to catch on fire in the winter because everyone's burning fires because it's Russia. Houses caught on fire in the winter a lot because they're all built of wood. And Peter fucking loved watching fires.
He was like the Red Woman in Game of Thrones. Maybe he saw prophecies. No, he was just crazy with ding-dong problems.
He was just absolutely insane. And so, to distract him and everyone at court, that like so they wouldn't like hear her in labor, her head of household just like went and set a house on fire so everybody would go watch the house burn.
Oh my God. So the baby's born, and this baby's name is Alexei, and he was sent away to be raised away from court. Never really comes back into the story. Gee, funny how all this works with Russia.
Yeah. Well, also Cahterine, like her children really aren't, except for Paul, like later on, her children really aren't a big part of her life. She didn't really get to be a mother anyway, you know.
Yeah, she never got to. I mean, when you don't get to hold your child the first time after you have them, you really don't connect with them.
Right. So pretty soon after the whole house burning fiasco, it's apparent that Empress Elizabeth she's not got a whole lot longer to live. She's very, very sick. And on Christmas Eve, 1761, Elizabeth has a stroke. And in the last days of her life, she summons both Cahterine and Peter to her rooms to say goodbye. She only summoned a handful of people because she didn't want, she was very prideful, and she looked pretty bad, and she didn't want a lot of people to see her. And then, like a month after that, in January 1762, Elizabeth passes away, and now Peter is emperor.
Oh, God.
Good luck,
said Russia.
Yeah.
So it's reported that Peter showed up to Elizabeth's funeral drunk. Are we really surprised by that? Like,
No,
I'm really
no.
not surprised. So
No.
he refuses to respect any of the Orthodox ceremonies, and it's just plain making a mockery of this entire thing.
Mhm.
But then, I can't say that. Juxtaposed. So juxtaposed. Let me juxtapose myself.
Oh.
Juxtapose. Oh my God. So Cahterine walks in the funeral, and she's dressed very plainly. She's wearing no jewelry. She's veiling her face, which is very orthodox, and everyone knew it was her, but it was this sign of respect for Elizabeth. Like, I'm not going to be over the top. I'm not going to be flashy to show all my dripping in jewels of Laguanza honey. No, she's not going to be flashy. Yeah. She's paying respect. And she went through all of the motions of the Orthodox ceremony, earning these huge brownie points with like pretty much all of Moscow, which is great. They're like, oh my God, this was that little girl that was calling for an Orthodox priest when she was on her deathbed. How have we forgotten about her?
We forgot how much we liked her.
Yeah, exactly.
And wow, fuck this emperor guy. He sucked.
This fucking guy.
He was sticking his tongue out at the priest during the ceremony. He's 34.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I read another story. So like after the ceremony, like they took her casket, kind of like a Princess Diana thing, where they like wheeled her casket to like where she was going to be buried, and Peter had to walk behind it.
Yeah.
So he was wearing this like traditional ceremonial mourning cloak, and two of the elders of the church had to hold the train of his cloak while he walked. And so he kept like stopping abruptly, so they would like run into him and then like turn around and like yell at them for running into him. And then he'd start like power walking, and so they'd accidentally lose the train, and it would go flying in the wind, and then he'd turn around and yell at them for dropping his train. And he was like doing all on purpose. He's just 34.
I wish the listeners could see my face right there.
He's such a dick.
Massive eye roll. Oh my God. So obviously, Peter as a ruler, you have to give him credit where credit is due. He did have a couple of good ideas. Religious freedom. Hey.
Not bad.
Not a bad thing.
Yeah.
And also, you just can't surfs up and kill your serfs for no reason.
Hey.
We think we should maybe talk about ending this serfdom in Russia. So, I mean, that started. That's positive.
Right.
And he got rid of the secret police.
That sounds scary. It sounds like a good thing.
Yeah.
To get rid of. Yeah. Get rid of that. However, unsurprisingly, he did some really dumb stuff too.
Oh, shocker.
huge oversimplification, but Russia had been at war with Prussia for 7 years. It was called the 7 Years' War because we're not creative here. He abruptly pulled Russia out of that war and told everyone that it had been a mistake. And that didn't sit well with the military families. Like, oops, your brothers and sons all died for nothing. LOL, like it wasn't a popular move. And then he's like, actually, Prussia is now our ally, and they're at war with Denmark, so we're going to go fight Denmark now. And they're all like, what? Why? We have no beef with Denmark. Why are we going to fight Denmark? And he was like, oh,
baby girl, what is you doing?
Oh, and one more thing. We're all going to get new uniforms. We're all going to have Prussian military uniforms now.
Oh my god. Oh,
like,
wow.
Could you imagine? It just, like, I'm trying to think of, like, what if Ronald Reagan had been, like halfway through the Cold War, been like, okay, American military, we're now going to have Soviet Union uniforms. That's, like...
that.
It would have been political suicide. And I feel like people could have voted for Peter III. He would have been voted out very quickly based on that alone,
Yeah, so needless to say, he's pretty unpopular. Nothing he could have done was going to make this acceptable to the Russian people, especially the military. And, military.
Wait, who
don't they like somebody?
Weren't we just talking about who the military really liked? Was it Cahterine?
Oh, Cahterine!
Yeah! Oh. A small group of generals and other diplomats have been toying with the idea of deposing Peter and putting Cahterine in his place. And Cahterine was kind of like, I mean, I can't say I haven't thought about it, but she just wasn't ready to move forward with it. Until one night, it was some kind of celebration for, I don't know, maybe it was somebody's birthday or something, but they were at like a state event, and Peter got really drunk and in front of everybody called Cahterine a fool and made her cry in front of like this whole big dinner party. And it was awkward schmawkward for everybody. And then like later that night after the dinner, he ordered Cahterine to be arrested. And the only reason she wasn't arrested is because there was like some Prussian dudes, some of the Prussian military in town at that dinner. And one of them happened to be Catherine's cousin. And he was like, hey, do me a solid, or got such a hard on for Prussia, and don't arrest my cousin. And he was like, okay, fine.
In hindsight, he probably should have arrested her because she was...
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like him. He's not a good ruler at all. But
right.
In hindsight, it may have solved a lot of his problems.
It would have... Yeah, hindsight is 20/20, but that's not what he did. He was like, okay, I won't arrest her then. And then after Cahterine gets word of, like, this is what happened tonight, you almost got arrested, she was like, okay, I think I'm ready to talk about deposing Peter now.
And from there, things escalated quickly.
Yes.
So we're going to leave out some of the little minor details, so we really have a chance to get into all those juicy bits. Juicy couture. So what you need to know is that in the summer of 1762, Peter and Cahterine had both been in St. Petersburg, but they were going to separate places. They were going to separate palaces far away from each other to spend the rest of the summer separate.
Yeah.
So they decided to leave their son, little baby Paul, in St. Petersburg, which was more of a calculated mood on Catherine's part, which we'll get to in a little bit. So Peter was going to a place called Oranienbaum. Now everybody's always gonna remember where Peter went.
Yeah.
So Cahterine actually went to a royal residence with a less Christmassy sound to it, Peterhof.
Yes. And while Peter was at Oranienbaum, Peter was going there with the idea that he's going to bring a bunch of troops there and do all his military drills with like real life toy soldiers. And so he brings a bunch of troops there and basically makes them run military drills all summer. And he also brought his mistress and their court, and they partied and did warfare cosplay. It might be important to mention, might come up later, that they don't even have like real guns or real swords. They're all like toy guns and toy swords for the military drills. Maybe that'll be important later.
So Cahterine and her little would-be coup partners are steadily putting their own toy soldiers into place, but they're actual soldiers with real guns. And one of her co-conspirators is a big guy in the military, a captain named Pasak. And one day, some nobody soldier asked Pasak, like, "Hey, Captain, heard some rumors the Empress was planning to overthrow the Emperor. You know, it's not true, right?" And Pasak was like, "You're dumb, and the things you say are dumb. Fuck off."
Yes. Direct quote.
But the soldier asks another captain, and he and Pasak are both arrested at that point. And word is sent back to Peter that Cahterine might be planning to overthrow you and depose you. And he was like, "Hello, well, she wouldn't dare."
He was like, why would anybody want her as ruler anyway? Oh, he's so dumb.
And then another general came to him and said the same thing. Like, "Bro, maybe you should take this shit seriously." Like,
yeah.
And Peter was saying, just leave me your findings and note. I'm practicing my violin right now. I am not to be bothered. Except he wasn't British. But the general did end up leaving him a note, and it was very detailed about all of the coup rumors on his desk. And guess who never read ye old dusty note?
Peter was just like, I'll get to that later, and just never read it. Oh God, he's such an idiot. So word gets back to Orloff that like the rumors are starting to fly about their coup. And so he's like, you know what? We need to move now. And he sends his brother, Alexis Orloff. He's like, bro, you need to go get Cahterine, go get her now, bring her to St. Petersburg. The plan is on. So they really aren't that far from Peterhof. St. Petersburg and Peterhof are only like an hour and a half drive, but he's going by carriage in the dead of night. So it took him like 4 hours to get there. And Alexis Orloff arrives at Catherine's place at like 5 a.m. And he busts into her room and she's sleeping and she sits up in bed and she's like, "What? What's going on?" And he's basically like, "It's on. It's now or never. You gotta go. Let's get up." And she's like, "Let's fucking go," and jumps out of bed. She's ready.
I can just imagine being like, you don't have to get ready if you stay ready.
Exactly.
And she was ready.
She was ready.
So she puts on her little LBD, that's little black dress for those who don't speak gay. And her ladies and maids try to convince her. They're like, you should probably put on some makeup. And she's like, no. They try to like convince her to like fix her hair, wear something nicer. But she's like, no, I want to look relatable. I don't want to appear dripping in jewels like an empress. That might not be a good look for me.
Yeah. She's like, I want to look like I just woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning because I want the people to be able to relate to me. She was like, I want them to know I'm an empress by my actions, not by the way I look. And I am so in love with that. I love her so much.
So they get back to St. Petersburg at 9 a.m. and she doesn't even have time to stop and take a baby breath. And her lover Orlov is there with her son Paul. So, like we said earlier, that she had strategically left Paul behind. It's because she knew there was a good chance that she was going to have to come rushing back without Peter, and whoever was the heir, or whoever has the heir and is like has them in their arms, is like the person that is, they have the upper hand. Exactly. So she and Paul rush to appear to the huge crowd that's showing up, and that huge crowd is mainly soldiers.
She makes this speech, and she is basically like, I'm not doing this for myself. My life is in danger if Peter continues to rule. My son's life is in danger. Our Russian way of life is in danger. Our traditions, our religion are in danger. So
Molly, you in danger, girl.
Russia, you in danger, girl. Yes. And she's just like, I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing this to preserve our way of life. If Peter finds out I'm doing this, though, he'll kill me. And it's basically like, will you protect me? And the crowd goes fucking wild. They're like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we will.
Yes. Bells are ringing, people cheering, drummers drumming. So everybody, the troops are starting to play for her, and they're all, I love this, they're all chanting, Mamushka, Mamushka.
Which means little mother. And she's like, will you march with me to overthrow Peter? And the whole city of St. Petersburg, it's like, fuck yes, we will. Yes!
That noise, yeah, that's literally what's happening right now, guys.
Yes.
So Cahterine then does something a little more unprecedented than all this other incredibly unprecedented shit that we just talked about. She decides she's gonna lead the army. God, I love this woman. She's going to ride at the front of the troops, dressed in military uniform, Russian traditional military uniform. And so she starts gathering piece by piece all of the outfits to wear from soldiers that are close to her size.
So I guess little tiny men.
Yeah, right? So when she's done, she mounts her horse and is like, okay, let's go!
Let's go!
Thundercats are go!
And then this one young nobody soldier runs out of ranks completely. Like, this took balls to just like approach the Empress like this when you're nobody. And he runs up to her horse and is like, Empress, you forgot part of your uniform. And like his captain's yelling at him, like, get back in line. What are you doing? And he's like, she forgot part of the uniform. And it's just like this piece of rope. It's called a sword knot. And it's just like a little knot that you put around like the handle of your sword. And he's like, that, this is part of our traditional gear. You need to have one of these. And Cahterine looks at her horse and she's like, okay, this kid took some balls to come up and get me this little piece of rope or whatever. Thank you. I appreciate that. What's your name? And he says, Gregory Potemkin. And she's like, all right, Potemkin, thanks. Now go get back in your spot. Maybe that's important. Maybe this is foreshadowing. We will come back to this later. Next episode, probably.
So, okay, it's time to ride some horses, and Cahterine is leading at least 14,000 armed men out of St. Petersburg.
That's a lot.
So, scene change, over to Peter, who's literally planning a party.
Surprise.
So, he had ordered a bunch of fireworks from St. Petersburg for the party, and when the guys delivering it arrived, they were like, something weird was going on at the Capitol, and I think it might have had something to do with your wife. And he's just like, ugh, my wife, she's the worst.
I don't even want to know. Don't tell me. I don't want to hear about her. Like, that's gonna ruin my party. And so,
spoiler alert, he did want to know.
He did. He probably should have listened. He probably should have tried to find out more. But as Catherine's army got closer and closer, her army got bigger and bigger. Like, each town that they went through, they gained more soldiers. And finally, someone was like, hey, this is no fucking joke. You need to send out your own army to meet them. This could be really dangerous for you. But remember how they didn't have any weapons? None of his army. He had hundreds of soldiers. They just only had, like, fake wooden swords.
Oh my
God. Feels like an SNL sketch.
I'm pretty sure they should make it an SNL sketch.
Right?
So Peter's like, ugh, fuck, okay, here's what we're gonna do. There's a small island, a really short ride away with the military fort. I'm just gonna hop on over there, seek protection, get my dudes to grab some, real guns or cannons or whatever people murder each other with those days. So they hop on a boat and they sail. But when they try to dock, there are armed men at the dock who won't let them get on the boat or off the boat, excuse me. And Peter's like, hello, it's me, your emperor.
Hello. Let me dock. I'm your emperor.
And they go, And they're like, emperor, we don't have an emperor. And our leader is an empress, Catherine II of Russia. And if you don't get the fuck out of here, we're going to open fire on you.
I am living for this moment. I love it. We don't have an emperor. We have an empress. I love it.
So obviously Peter is frantic.
Yes.
He has a messenger send a letter to Catherine being like, you know, that time that I was such a dick to you before.
For like the last 15 years.
Yeah, well, if we just call this whole thing off and I can be an equal co-ruler with you and we can do this for the rest of our lives. How about that?
Right.
And Catherine's like, no. She receives the letter. She receives the letter and tells the messenger, literally, quote unquote, I will not be responding to this.
Which is 18th century version of leaving someone on red. She's just like, I'm not responding to this. Because she's like, it's abdication or nothing. It's abdication or we kill him, basically.
So he sees that writing on the wall. He's like, okay, fine. I don't want to be killed. Right. So he writes back to Catherine and states, I, Peter, of my own free will, declare that I forever renounce the throne of Russia to the end of my days. I will never seek to recover this title by any means or with anyone's assistance. I swear this by God. He channeled his inner Baptist preacher.
Yes.
And he had only been an emperor for 6 months.
Yes, it was a short reign. Short may he reign. Catherine is now empress. Years later, long after Peter's death, spoiler alert, she would tell Frederick the Great of Peter that he, quote unquote, allowed himself to be dethroned like a child being sent to bed. That is where we will leave this story with my heart just pumping. It got me so pumped up. I love how she just wrote in and was like, Russia is mine now. And he was just like, okay.
literally
that was so much fun. We will catch you guys in a couple of weeks with part 3.
Yeah.
Cheers, Nathan.
Cheers.